Hi, my name is Layton. I'm an intuitive and a mystic. Today I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. So, usually I would have things planned out kind of in a lecture format with notes and structure, but I kind of missed my earlier videos where I would just talk. And there wasn't any real structure. I mean, they were still organized, but there was just a flow state. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, where I think there's so much value to the structure of those kinds of lecture videos. So I will still continue putting those out there. But I also think that there's so much value in the flow state. And quite honestly, I think that that's something that everything within society is attempting to dissociate from and attempting to pull us out of. I was even having a conversation recently with someone who I am actually going to be interviewing on my channel soon. So stay tuned. I'm very excited for that. But he was talking about how, we put all this emphasis on developing the third eye and on becoming enlightened and becoming the next Buddha or something like that. But can we clean our room? Can we wash the dishes? Can we do these very basic things? And this is something, this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about kind of this dissociation that is very widespread that we've been experiencing, where so much of our life, so much of our social structure, so much of our community, so much of our identity is found in social media and in these artificial structures, these artificial spaces. And what happens is we begin to kind of interact with our real life that way. And it becomes so intricately interwoven with our real life that, we have people that can't go to the bathroom without bringing their cell phone and they just always have to be on it. And I think that that's something that we all struggle with to an extent, where it's like, okay, what is the line between, I know that this thing has so many things in it that I need. For example, my phone has my GPS. It has my banking app, it has my camera, all of these things. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm not just adding all of this excess clutter that is going to keep me locked in this kind of fake world, this fake reality. And so what happens is, if we get to a point where we wake up and the first thing that we do isn't make our bed, it's check our phone. And we can't go to the bathroom or take a shower without bringing our phone with us, we are exiting this very natural flow state. And it becomes something where it's like everything is curated and everything has to be perfected. We have to make sure that all our ducks in a row, everything is perfect, so that we can present ourselves to the world a specific way. And I think that's really dangerous. And quite honestly, I miss the old YouTube days. I mean, I never had the desire at the time to put myself on YouTube or do anything like that. I was always a writer and a blogger. And from a very young age, I actually would run several blogs at a time, some of which are still up, and I will never be sharing them because they can be kind of embarrassing. I had one blog and it was all about exposing the Illuminati. This is when I was like 16, 17. And I had a lot of good insights, but I was also operating from a very limited perspective, and I saw the occult as something that was just evil and inherently bad. And so I've definitely grown a lot from there. But I miss the old YouTube days where it's just someone recording in their living room, which, by the way, is what I'm doing right now. And I chose to, for authenticity purposes, leave on my makeshift couch cover that, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually, it just started raining outside and it's really dark out. I feel like I'm some kind of Victorian ghost haunting my own apartment. I mean, it's kind of a vibe. Why would I get rid of that for the sake of a video? So I decided that, alongside having those structured lectures, which I really enjoy making, and I love creating workbooks, I love creating courses, And I love presentations. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. There's so much value in that, and they can really help certain people too. I know that they help me. But I also love just having a conversation. I want you to feel like you're in my living room with me and we're just talking heart to heart and face to face. So that being said, as I mentioned previously, I'm going to be interviewing someone shortly, but I actually have a few people lined up that I'm going to be interviewing because I just want to have conversations with people. You know, everything these days is through a screen, and of course, you're going to be watching these interviews through a screen, but there's just something about having these face to face, heart to heart conversations with people and then being able to take that and share it that is just so special to me. So that is my little rant about some of the changes that I'm going to be making on my YouTube channel. And I just wanted to expand with some things. And I've been taking a bit of a break. I'm sure you've noticed I'm not on Twitter anymore. I may come back. I may never come back. I'm just gonna say that life without Twitter, you know that meme, and it's like two people in a bus, and one is looking out one side of the bus window, and the other is looking out the window on the other side, and it's like one side is dark and gray and dreary, and the other side is like these beautiful mountains with the sun coming up over it. I feel like the guy looking out the window at the beautiful mountains with the sun rising up over them since being off Twitter. Life feels very good to me right now being off Twitter. So I'm just going to stick with that for now. And I haven't been posting as much either because I have been having a lot of things going on in my life. Some things that are good, some things that are difficult and have caused a lot of grief and a lot of change. And I cannot be my best self for you. I can't present myself as my best self for you if I'm not taking care of myself in a way that's going to allow me to do that. So when I take space, it's not, I'll get emails and people are like, did you quit? No, I'm not quitting. But that's the thing, is that social media, it kind of primes us to think that someone, is just always sitting around producing all of this content or something. And I'm not content, I'm a person. And I want to take the things that I've learned and I want to share them with you. But sometimes I need time off in order to do that. And I have been advised against doing that by so many people who say, people aren't going to be interested in you anymore if you do that. And you have to be realistic about how the world is now and having this business mindset. And I don't operate that way. I really, truly don't. I genuinely, and maybe this is naive of me, I genuinely believe that when I listen to my body and I listen to my spirit, regardless of what society expects or how things are supposed to be, I believe that the people and the opportunities that are supposed to come into my life will. And I don't think an algorithm can stop that. I don't think that me losing followers can stop that. I think that if something is intended to happen, then it will, according to God's will. So now that is the end of my rant. And I am going to be talking for a few minutes about egregores because, honestly, the whole first half of my video that I was just talking can be seen as an egregore, because social media is an egregore. It changes and warps and impacts the way that we interact with people, the way that we communicate, the way that we interact with life. And so if you don't know what an egregore is, I'm going to give an example. I could actually give a few examples in this video. I had the desire to do something at one point in time. And it's something still that I feel very led to do. It's an impulse that is deep within me that has been in my heart for a long time. However, I had received a premonition about this thing years ago. And because I had seen this thing so clearly, and it kind of lays out a specific aspect of my future that makes it so that I can't do certain things that I would have otherwise done because I need to make sure that I'm where I need to be when this thing happens. I was kind of struggling with not seeing at the time certain material fruits of this. And this is one reason why I think we have to be really careful around things like manifestation, and I'm going to get into that later. But essentially, I thought, if I'm not seeing the fruit of this, then it must mean that it's not happening. When in reality, this is me exposing myself, okay? I had been given a time frame and told, you're not going to see the fruit from this for X amount of years. So I knew. They told me, and I was like, that's not good enough for me. I need to see this. Like, why am I not seeing this? And so what I did is I started writing out kind of what I wanted to see and what I wanted to happen. And I was having this existentialism around this situation because for me, it was less about the specific situation and it was more so, if this is my future and this is taking up this gigantic slot in my future, I need to make sure this thing happens. So I started I was being kind of a control freak about it. And I was losing my faith in it. I was losing my trust in it. And despite having that time frame, it wasn't good enough for me. And I was going to do everything I could to try and make it happen. So, I'm writing all of this stuff out and attempting to manifest it. And I'm constantly going into my body and going into my Akashic records and trying to pull out anything that's going to help me. And I was always blocked at a certain point because from that state, could not, I wasn't, not, the right word isn't worthy, but I did not have the capacity to receive certain information because of what I was doing with it. When we are operating from that place, why are we going to get more information about something that is causing this state of obsession? So, I am very sensitive to entities. I'm very sensitive to things like egregores. And even when I have them within myself, this is something that I've always been able to see pretty clearly. I could look in the mirror and literally see in my body where I have something like that going on. And I kind of had a blind spot in this specific area. And the blind spot wasn't that I didn't see it. It's that I was so obsessed with this thing happening. Because like I said, if this thing doesn't happen, then what is my entire future? And what am I wasting my time with, So I was so obsessed with this thing happening that I just really struggled to even allow myself to see the truth of the situation. So that being said, one day I am collecting and kind of compiling all of my papers regarding this thing, all of my notes, all of the journal entries, everything I've written about this thing. And I pick one up, and it was kind of like my way of scripting about the situation, but it was also, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess kind of like a vow. And you're not supposed to make those, right? We're not supposed to do that for a reason. And there was literally the energy that was coming off of this paper was so consuming and so magnetic, but it was like a blur. And I realized I had created a double of what I was working towards that entire time. And so I'm going to try and explain this as best as I can, but it can be difficult to explain these psychic things sometimes. Okay, so I have my real situation right over here that I was told. I had a premonition. I was told several times. I was told this is the time frame this is going to happen and you're not going to see this fruit for X amount of years. And I'm like, okay. And then I had the idealized version where I was trying to manipulate the situation and make it happen faster and trying to manifest things in a certain way to give myself comfort and to validate my own lack of trust. And that had created a false version of this, okay? So every time I was seeking information, I was seeking information from this false version, from this egregore. And I actually ended up having to do this entire ritual to release this egregore. And I had to be very, very honest with myself about exactly where that was coming from and exactly what I was doing. I had to recognize the selfishness in it. I had to recognize that I had taken this thing that was very pure, that came from God, that was an impulse, and I had turned it into a selfish desire. And that's not easy to face. And so when we are talking about egregores, which, by the way, one of my favorite books by Dion Fortune is Applied Magic. I love what she says about egregores and applied magic. She essentially says that we are always feeding and creating these egregores at all times. And what she means by that is that we are always interacting with either higher emotions or lower emotions, higher entities or lower entities, things that are organic and of God versus things that are subnatural. And this isn't a black and white way of thinking either. This isn't something where you want to have a negative or lower emotion about something and then shame that emotion, because the emotion in and of itself is not the problem. It's what we do with it. Because the emotion or the thought or whatever it is, that's just a messenger. It exists to let us know, hey, this thing is within you. You know, this is what's happening. This is how it's affecting you. And then we choose how we interact with that thing. And that's what changes it from being a messenger to becoming a weapon, truthfully. So we can't look at things that are considered a lower emotion, such as anger or jealousy or envy or something like that, and shame ourselves for it. That would be ridiculous. Because if we're shaming ourselves for it, it means that we're already at a point where we are identifying with it and we are interacting with it as if it is a part of us instead of being a messenger. And when we do that, we know pretty clearly that we are identifying with the lower doppelganger. We're identifying with the lower self. So I really hope that makes sense. And another really good example of this was, for those of you that don't know, I am a detransitioner. So I am a biological female who had a lot of trauma. I went through a cult. I, was groomed when I was a teenager, and I had body dysmorphia and on the spectrum, but, undiagnosed at the time. And I had all of this, like sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, all this stuff. And because of that, I had a lot of body issues, and I had also gone through conversion therapy because I'm a lesbian. So I had all of these issues, and I went to see a psychiatrist, and who kind of, affirmed these beliefs that because I didn't feel like I could relate to other women, that I must be a man. And so I firmly believe that gender affirming care and that the ideology around that is an egregore. Now, I want to be very clear and just say that I have some really good friends that are trans identified. And I don't believe that when someone is a kind and loving person, that we should be hateful to them because of whatever it is that they're going through. And I also don't take my experience and apply it to every single person, because every single person has a different experience. However, I do believe that there are spiritual things at play here. I think that there's trauma at play here. And I think that it is very naive of us to pretend that that is not what is happening. Because I look at that time and how many people were calling me by he, him pronouns and referring to me as male. And it begins to create this false identity to the point and extent where even after I detransitioned, I would look in the mirror and I would see a man, not because that's who I truly am, and not even necessarily just because of the years that I was on testosterone, but because it psychologically damaged me. I had created this false sense of self that was literally an egregore, which brings me to the entire reason why I'm talking about this at all right now, which is because of what we are seeing happen politically. Now, I don't want my video taken down, so I'm not going to go into specifics about what I'm talking about, but we had a very significant event recently with a presidential candidate, and there was an attempt made on his life. And then right after that, we had the current president, drop out of the race, and we're seeing all of this stuff happen. And I think that when we interact with this kind of thing, we need to be very, very careful and aware of the fact that everything that is happening has the potential to be an egregore and to create some kind of egregore. So every political ideology, every religious ideology, every ideology around even things like believing that we live in like a fake simulation, or believing that aliens created us, or and that we're not divine organic human beings, or the belief that we're just a computer program or something like that. These things are egregores, and they attach to us, and they begin to kind of cause us to morph into this copy of ourselves that is not who we truly are, because that is a program. That is a program that it kind of acts as a magnet and pulls the true self into it, where it then begins to cannibalize the true self and replace it. And especially in the age of social media, where I made a post recently about this, because on social media, and I think it's really difficult to avoid this, especially when you're someone like me who's kind of like putting yourself out there and interacting with a lot of people. And that's why I take breaks, and I have a habit over the years of getting to a certain point where I'm like, okay, I need to take X amount of months off, or X amount of weeks off, or I need to not engage with this for a while and just kind of do my own thing, because I find it very psychologically damaging. And I think that there's something that is it just feels so inherently wrong about it, where you present yourself on the internet, and no matter how authentically we all aim to do this, what happens is that the phone, the TV, the computer, all of these things are a literal black mirror, and our identity can get distorted in it. But it's not even just that. It's also that we have on social media these curated algorithms, and you literally have bots that get on there, or entire organizations and companies where people are literally paid to post really crazy things, or to comment crazy things as a form of engagement farming. But they're not just farming engagement. they're farming your energy, whether or not that's what they are intending to do, whether or not that's what they realize that they are doing. That's what's happening. So we get on there and we tweet something, and then you have all these people. It's kind of like that running joke that on the internet you can't say you like pancakes, because someone is going to hop on and say, oh, so you hate waffles, So we get on there and we tweet something, or we post something, and you have all these people coming out of the woodwork telling you that you're a horrible person and you should yourself. I almost said the word and I was like, oh, I don't want to get flagged for that. But yeah, you should harm yourself in order to appease them, because they don't like what you have to say, or you shouldn't be allowed to say this certain thing. And just being cussed out and having people say horrible things about you. And not only that, but on Twitter, what I was specifically seeing, and it felt like nothing I did. It felt like no matter how many times I tried to get rid of this stuff, and I would mute it and block certain pages, it was really impossible because my For You page feed, it's like I would just log onto Twitter and then see the most traumatic video I've ever seen in my life, and it's just automatically playing and I can't click away fast enough. And those things, they feed off of your energy. And not only that, but then you have people that they don't really see you as a human anymore because they've never met you in person. They're seeing you through a screen. They see these photos of you that you take and you choose out of however many you took. You choose the one where you think you look the best and post it, and that's what they're seeing, and they begin to kind of form within their psyche this image of you and who you are as a person, and what you are to them, and what you owe them. I mean, I have felt like such an object at times, and I have felt like an NPC at times. I've had, not in my own self, but in relation to other people, I have felt like they see me that way. And I have, just had the most hurtful, hateful, disrespectful, really cruel things said to me. And I'm not alone in that. That is not unique to me. If you are any person that is putting yourself out on the internet regularly, you're probably going to encounter things like that. But some people, I think, they get to a point where they kind of have the capacity for that. And sometimes I have the capacity for that. And other times I'm like, man, I am going through a lot in my own life right now, and I just need a break from this. There's only so much we can take. And I think that that's good because it gives us a chance to step away and to reevaluate things and see who we truly are outside of this thing, because so many people kind of fall into that black mirror. And I know this happened to me in the past. Especially years ago. And actually, it's funny because the following that I have now on social media, it's not as big as the following that I had like maybe 10 or 11 years ago. And that was so difficult for me and so draining to me that I just don't know how people do it. I mean, I am doing this genuinely at the end of the day because I love people and I want to connect with people and I want to share different things. And this is the best avenue to do that. And that is pretty much it. But when we see people making a life out of being an influencer, and they have to post X amount of selfies per day, and they have to go live X amount of times per week, and there needs to be this constant content, and maybe they're an Instagram model or whatever it is. It's not that that is inherently a bad thing to do, but it's that when we do that, we have to be so aware of the impact that it has on us. We have to be so aware that, it's not that everything on social media is fake. And especially if you follow me on my personal Instagram, you are going to see very real things. Me hanging out with my cats, or accidentally stabbing myself in the foot, practicing knife tossing, or spending time with my family, normal things like that. But the thing is that is not the majority of what's being posted on social media these days. And on my public Instagram account, it's different. And that's where I'm posting those more curated things. And the thing is that's also good because we need privacy. Privacy needs to exist. There needs to be a certain barrier. We should not just be opening our lives and our energy to every single person. We need to be careful what we are putting out there. So it's not about, if you do this, then you're fake, or you're doing something wrong. It has nothing to do with that. We have to have a balance. There's nothing normal about exposing certain things about our private life to millions of people. And quite honestly, that it's not a good psychic practice. It opens you up to psychic attack. It opens you up to all sorts of crazy projections and things that you don't want. And there's actually a lot that I could say about that as someone who has kind of made that mistake in the past a few times. But for the sake of authenticity, but that would be an entirely different video. But we just have to be careful with these things. And so I also wanted to talk because Steiner has a lecture where he talks about how there are different kinds of egregores in the way that they impact us. So we have aramonic egregores that are, those attach and kind of stem from the etheric body. And then we have luciferic egregores, and those attach and kind of stem from the astral body, which when I heard that, I was like, as someone who sees these things visually, I was like, that actually makes so much sense to me. But he also says that these egregores, what generally ends up happening, and this is actually something that I see happening a lot in the New Age too, where and actually not even just in the New Age, but when I was in dogmatic Christianity, this is something that I saw happen all the time, and it happened in my own life too, where because you don't have the proper occult knowledge and you don't really understand anything about egregores, you don't understand what's happening from a clairvoyant perspective, so you're not able to interact with it that way, and you're interacting with it from a very rudimentary, naive place. There's a lot of missing pieces that kind of come about. So I was thinking about that and how he says that what ends up happening most of the time is someone is experiencing bouts of extreme jealousy. And this is an egregore that is constantly triggering them, and it's tugging on them, and it's trying to get energy from them. And so it's constantly whispering in their ear, look at that person, look at what they have, and you don't have that. You're never going to have that. And so they have these feelings and they experience them, and it's like, oof, I don't want to think that about this person. This is horrible. I don't want to feel this about this person. And so they do everything that they can to push it away. And they just keep pushing it away and keep pushing it away. And what actually happens is that instead of that jealousy being exercised, it transforms, but it doesn't transmute, it transforms into something else. So that they think, wow, I got rid of that jealousy just by ignoring it, and now it's gone. But really, it's gone from being jealousy to criticism, where now instead of looking at other people and thinking, wow, like I hate them for what they have and I should have that and not them, then it's looking at them like they don't deserve that at all. They shouldn't have that at all, and look at how they messed this thing up, and I'm better than them because of this. And so it just transforms into something else. And I really saw that in my own life in dogmatic Christianity, where I had made such a drastic life change. I had a near-death experience that was the result of a drug overdose that I had, and then I went back into the cult that I was raised in and that my family was in. And from there, I was like, oh, and I had spent 9 months in rehab. So I thought, I am a saint now compared to before, and I am not the same person that I was, and all of those things are gone. But what happened was that they had turned inward. They had turned inward onto themselves. So Steiner also talks about how things like being shy or being unable to speak our mind, being unable to be, I guess, honest with people is also an egregore. And I loved that he said this, because I have said in the past that a fawn response is an egregore. But Steiner was saying that this specific egregore, and so I would see a fawn response and, being unable to be authentic with other people as being the exact same thing. It's just different words. So he says that stems from a place of deceit, which is an aramonic egregore. And it does stem from a place of deceit. But here's how we have to kind of look at this in order to avoid shaming ourselves and in order to kind of interact with this in a realistic way. So when we are engaging with a fawn response, what generally happens, and Steiner even says this too, like if we feel like we can't be honest with other people, we have to look at how were we raised, what was our child like, what was our childhood like, what was happening. And what did that teach us? So what ends up happening is that we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe in the world because we don't understand the world. We don't understand what's happening to us. We don't have occult knowledge, so we don't understand what's happening in our own bodies, and we're very dissociated and shut down. We're locked in the lower centers, and we're operating from the lower doppelganger, which essentially can be kind of dumbed down as the pain body, but it is more complex than that. But for the sake of time in the video, you can kind of look at it that way. And I do have a video on this, and I have a course on this called Overcoming the Lower Doppelganger. So we can be acting from that place where we think this is our authentic self. We most of the time don't know that we're not acting authentically. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we are aware that we're not acting authentically, but we don't realize that it is the act of fawning that is doing that. We think, oh, I am my true self. I am my core self. But when I interact with this person, I'm not safe to be my core self. So I'm just going to hide it from this person, and that's okay. But when we do that, we're lying to ourselves, and that does affect the body. I really love this quote that's in the OA, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. It is incredibly esoteric, lots of ties to theosophy and anthroposophy. There's even some Gurdjieff thrown in there. Just really great overall. And there's a quote where she says, lying ages you. And I think that lying is something that is very misunderstood, because when most of us think of lying, we think of something that we are intentionally going out of our way to do for a malicious reason, with malicious intent. But that's not always the case. Lying can be something like, I am going to leave out certain information because I want to protect this person. And someone asks me this question, and I don't know what to say because I don't feel comfortable sharing this specific thing. And so then instead of just telling them, I don't feel comfortable sharing this, we end up twisting it just a little bit. Or choosing to pretend to agree with someone on something that we don't agree with, even if that lie is just nodding in agreement and not saying a word. Because lying is less about what we are verbally saying, and it's more about the state of being. And it does age us. It does make us sick. And this is something I have a lot of personal experience with, because my entire childhood, I was hiding this huge secret of being a lesbian. I was hiding this secret of not believing in the things that I was raised to believe in, and having a different belief system and having experiences that I felt like I couldn't share. And it made me so sick. And then also having that experience of when I was in drug addiction, and I was constantly lying about where I was and what I was doing and who I was with and all of these things. And I will never forget the feeling when I had my near-death experience and then I came to. And when the first conversation I had with my mom after I came to, I just started confessing all of this stuff to her. And it was just pouring out of me like red wine. Like I couldn't scrub it out, and I didn't want to. I was happy to see the stains everywhere because thank God they were out of me. And it was out. I was free of these things. And the amount of relief that I felt, it was like I had released legions of egregores. And so that is another reason why I think we have to be very careful around the gender stuff, because we're telling children that they are the opposite sex. And here's the thing, someone can have gender dysphoria. They can live with so much discomfort that they feel more comfortable presenting themselves as the opposite sex. But there is no way to realistically and genuinely have a sex change. You can undergo all the hormones. You can, have whatever surgeries it takes. And then centuries go by and someone digs up your body. And if someone had dug me up, even if I had undergone surgery, which thank God I didn't, but I was on hormones for 3 years. And if someone dug me up, they would classify me as female based on my DNA. It is not possible to change someone's sex. So the language that we use around these things is very, very important. And I also think that in order to avoid being caught up in these egregores, whether it be political ideologies, or social justice ideologies, religious ideologies, is that we need to become more comfortable with the fact that we don't know everything. Not only do we not know everything, but there's lots of things that we don't know. And we need to become more comfortable with just saying, I don't know about certain things. Sometimes I hear someone say something and I think, that's probably true. And then I find myself going to post something about it. And I realize, just because I think it's probably true, I probably shouldn't say this, because there's a difference between something probably being true, and having the truth integrated and known within your body so deeply that it changes everything about who you are, because we cannot remain the same in the presence of truth. We just can't. It transforms us. So I end up either making sure that I specifically say that I don't know that this thing is true, or just not commenting on it at all. We're allowed to not comment on things. In fact, in this day and age, with everything that's going on, sometimes not commenting on things and not interacting with things is one of the best ways that we can protect ourselves from egregores, which leads me to my final point of my little conversation with Leighton. And you either enjoyed this format or you didn't, but more is gonna come, because I personally enjoy it and I like the balance of it. I really do. But truth is what is going to save us. But in order for truth to save us, we have to save it. We have to choose it. We can't beat around the bush. We can't deny reality. We can't pretend that things are when they're not. We have to choose truth. And that is very scary, especially in this day and age where choosing truth can mean being canceled. It can mean people thinking that you're a bad person. They may even think that you're an evil person. They may wish you harm, serious harm. They may attempt to harm you. We don't live in a time where it is a safe and easy and fun thing to share truth. It's just not. But are we brave enough to do that anyway? And we have to start with being truthful with ourselves. Just like me in the beginning of this video, when I was talking about how I had taken this thing that was so pure and it was from God and it was an impulse, and I had twisted it and turned it into a desire that I was trying to manipulate and I was trying to control. And I wasn't doing it with malicious intent. I was doing it from a place of fear. And so that's where so much of this stems from, is we are acting out of fear and a lack of faith and a lack of trust that makes it so difficult for us to even want to be honest with ourselves. That's so scary. It's so scary to look in the mirror and acknowledge when we have things about ourselves that we don't like. And a lot of people, and I relate to this because I used to do the same, where I would say, oh, there's so many things about me that I don't like. But I was confusing self-hatred with genuine authenticity and genuine honesty. And that is not the same thing. When we are acting from a place of self-hatred and judgment, where we are looking at ourselves and it's like, oh, you said this thing and now everyone thinks you're stupid, and you did this thing and that's so cringe. I can't believe that you just did this and now no one's gonna like you, and why are you always screwing up? Why are you always doing these things? You're not talented, you're not funny, you're not pretty. Like, these things that we say to each other, that is not honesty. That is bullying. That is bullying. So there's a difference between that and looking at something and realizing, I probably could have handled this a little bit differently. I do my best to be patient. I do my best to communicate effectively. I do my best not to judge other people, but I fell short in this situation, and I want to make it right. That's the other thing, is we have to make it right. And that doesn't mean that we necessarily have to go to someone and say, hey, I just want to apologize to you because I gossiped about you behind your back. If it's someone you have a close relationship with, then that may be what you feel led to do. But if you just see someone's tweet online and send it to your friend and you're like, wow, like, what a whack job. Why did they say this crazy thing or something? You may not want to reach out to this person that doesn't know you at all and make them feel bad about themselves by bringing this whole thing up. That may not be the way that you are supposed to resolve things. You should resolve things the way that you feel guided and led to resolve things. But we do need to resolve things, and a lot of the time, what we need to do after we are honest with ourselves, after we have made that decision to be honest and to choose truth, we then want to send energy to that person, send love to that person, and apologize from the heart that way, and really aim to affect the energy, because at the end of the day, that is what all of this is. All of this is energy in the way that we choose to interact with things, and we just can't skimp on that fact. We can't pretend that that's not what's happening with the way that the world is right now. We can't get on Twitter and pretend that nothing ever affects us. I see people say stuff like that all the time. It's like, oh, well, I eat processed food all day long, and I just tell my body not to get sick from it and not to be impacted by it, and it won't. That's delusional. I'm sorry, that is not how it works. You don't drink poison. And I mean, if you're a master, if you're an ancient master, maybe you can drink poison and have it transmuted before it even reaches your digestive system and turn into something else, and then you're completely fine. But if we can't do that, if we can't literally drink a vial of poison and have it transmuted and transformed, then I don't know why we think that that's happening when we're eating like 7 Big Macs a week. It's just not realistic. It's not real. It is very evident that these things come from the lower ego, and I think it's easy for any of us to fall into that trap where we don't want to be impacted by something, so we can just pretend that it's not happening. Like me with my desire egregore that I created, and I was like, I'm just not going to look at it, because if I look at it, I'm going to see what I've done. But it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's normal and human to do things like that sometimes, even when you're an occultist, even when you do this stuff all the time. It's normal to be on social media and end up in a conversation where you are obviously feeding someone's egregore because you're just arguing back and forth with them. It's normal and human for us to fall into that sometimes. We don't need to shame ourselves. We just need to be aware, and we need to call ourselves out as lovingly as possible so that we can change our behavior and not fall into that moving forward. So that is just my own little rant on egregores and thought forms. Let me know if you enjoyed this format. Let me know if you have anything that you want to share about this topic, and I will be seeing you soon with some interviews, with some lectures. I'm still not going to be posting as much. I'm not going to be posting on Instagram as much. I mean, I'll be posting here and there, but I'm not going to be writing as much or doing that right now, because I still have a lot going on in my life and stuff with my family that I want to be more present for. And so, yeah, but I'm going to be prioritizing video content because I really like doing things this way. I love having conversations this way. And I miss you guys. I like getting on here and talking to you. So that being said, thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.